welcome to Changing Gears, a podcast dedicated to cool, interesting people, travel, photography, and the gear we love. Unlike the Worn and Wound podcast, which also takes a friendly approach to watch news and collector discussions, Changing Gears focuses more on topics that are outside of the watch industry, but I feel like a lot of watch enthusiasts are still interested in. Today, we are joined by Sam Amos, based out in Portland, Oregon. Sam is an industrial designer, not a graphic designer, like I think I mistakenly said during the podcast. So my bad there, Sam. He's got an incredibly cool background and has worked at places like the James brand, which he did for 11 years during their startup, and helped design some of my favorite knives. I know all of us here at Worn and Wound are huge fans of the James brand. He's also worked at Nike, which we get into as well. It was super fun to chat with him. But before I go and get into the episode, I want to remind y'all that we've got some exciting news. The Wind Up Watch Fair is celebrating 10 years this year. What started as a simple idea to bring watch enthusiasts together has grown into the biggest watch fair in the world, which is actually really crazy to say. And for our 10th anniversary, we're making it even bigger. In 2025, we're not just doing 3 fairs, we're adding a 4th. That's right, we are bringing Wind Up to Dallas, Texas for the first time ever. So whether you're a longtime collector or you're just getting into watches, or you simply love the energy of an awesome watch community, this is definitely the year to join us. Please do. Expect some exciting new brands, some hands-on experiences as always, and a whole lot of fun. Here's where you can find us in 2025. We will be in Dallas, Texas, March 15th through 16th. We will be in San Francisco, May 2nd through the 4th. We will be in Chicago, July 11th through 13th. And of course, we will end the year on home turf in New York City, October 17th through the 19th. So mark your calendars, tell your watch collecting friends, and head over to thewindupwatchfair.com for all the details. And I definitely can't wait to see y'all there. So now let's get into the episode. Well, hey, Sam, thanks for joining me today. Super excited to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm equally as excited.
Yeah, and Kazan recommended you, and I looked up your website, and I was like, oh my gosh, why haven't I had you on the show already? And didn't realize you had actually written for Worn and Wound too.
Yeah. No, I'm a huge fan of watches and what y'all are building over there at Worn and Wound. I mean, not really building what you've built and continue to build. So,
well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I know our listeners can't see, but you have on some really cool glasses. I just have to give you a shout out there. I like your specs.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one thing I like to spend money on because it's like an accessory for me that I can change up each year, so.
Yeah, totally. I'm the same exact way. I splurge on my glasses. I've been wearing glasses since I was probably in the 2nd grade. Yeah. And I feel like it's such a part of my identity. I tried at one point to go the contact route, and I don't know, I just didn't feel like me. And I still wear them from time to time when I'm, on a beach or something, and I don't want to have my glasses on, but it feels like part of my wardrobe every day, just putting my glasses on.
Yeah, totally. For me, it's another like accessory, right? Like it's just men don't have as many accessories.
Yeah.
So it's like, eyewear and watches are like the 2 you can see. So
Exactly. Well, speaking of watches, let's do a quick wrist check. What do you have on the wrist today?
Yeah, I got my Tudor FXD,
Sweet,
the black dial version.
Yeah.
So this one I got. Actually, this is for my second son whenever he's of age to be responsible enough. But
yeah,
I worked my way through a couple Tudors before this one, and this one's definitely sticking now, though.
Yeah, I love the FXD. It took me a while to come around to it with the fixed lugs on it. But yeah, I've been looking at those and kind of itching for as we start to get closer to spring and summer. The blue dial is and blue bezel is just really, really pretty. And I'm like, maybe that's a goal watch for the summer.
Yeah, it's a good, and because I had the LHD before, and I was just wearing it on a NATO, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
why don't I just switch to the FXD? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I do. I part of me does wish they would come out with version with a bracelet, but I get it. It's functional. I love NATOs too, and I change them out constantly on my watches.
yeah.
Today I'm wearing my the white Speedmaster.
Oh, love that
This
one.
one's been yeah, it's been hard to take off, honestly.
Yeah,
It's like perfect fit. The new bracelets are insane. They're so good. And yeah, this is actually a watch I've been talking about taking the bracelet off, and I need to. I need to stick it on a cool NATO.
yeah,
But it's so beautiful. It literally goes with everything, which I love. And same with your watch with that black dial. Like you just put it on with whatever you're wearing and go.
yeah. Totally, yeah. And my my other one, I have two sons, and I bought a Speedmaster when he was born, and
Oh, really? That's awesome.
yeah.
That'll
So
be his watch.
when he gets that, I think that white dial will be the one I replace it with. I
Yeah, a
think.
little upgrade.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. What did you think of that? The GMT FXD. Did you like that?
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
You could kind of just tell it was coming at some point, but I think I haven't seen it in the metal or anything yet, but
Hmm.
it's definitely tempting because the GMT is high on my list for next.
Yeah.
But,
It's really cool.
my FXD if I got that,
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did in person with the sort of I hate saying Fotina, but the more creamed
Hmm.
loomed markers on it and the bezel. But in person, like it's rad. It's awesome. I hope they do more versions of that going forward. Yeah, it's super slim, fits great, looks great. I love a GMT. It's probably my favorite complication in a watch. I just think it's cool. I don't use it a ton, but I like to have it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I agree. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to start at the beginning, not the beginning of like where are you born, but more of like how you first got into graphic design and maybe sort of when the bug hits you for that.
yeah. Well, I'm actually industrial design, but
Okay.
yeah, yeah. That's like I do. It's funny though. Like these days, I look up to graphic designers more these
Yeah.
days than industrial designers. I think
Yeah.
like
And
there's
can you explain the differences for people like me?
yeah, yeah. I mean, graphic design in general is more historically has been 2D, but it's
Okay.
more like the main difference between the two, I would say, is 2D and 3D. So like
Okay.
graphic design works a lot more in aesthetics for branding and kind of marketing front and
Yeah.
logos and identities, whereas industrial design is typically the physical design of
The
the product.
product.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Um,
awesome.
so but like the two kind of careers kind of work very closely together. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And when did like were you a kid when you sort of knew that you wanted to go into that industry?
Well, I was in high school, so in high school I was pretty good at math, and I was always in art class, so I had
Yeah.
art, all the way through to the AP art and everything, and um, I kind of was like, I didn't want to try and make it as an artist in the art world, and I wasn't quite engineering enough. So like
Yeah.
industrial design ended up being like the perfect blend of that, I guess. And my dad actually had discovered a book about this company called IDEO, that's a really famous industrial design firm.
Mm.
And I actually got to tour it when I was in sophomore in high school in
Oh,
San
wow.
Francisco.
Oh, is it still in San Francisco now?
Yeah, that's where their main. It's actually like there's offices around the world,
Oh,
but
wow. Wow.
it's kind of the big one, I think, in San Francisco. And so I got to tour that, and it was, walking. There's these places called war rooms that basically are, Skittles and Nerf guns
Oh
and
my
Skittles
gosh.
plastered in the wall. And I'm sure it's a little different now, but when I walked in back then, I was like, oh, this seems like a rad career if you can join
Yeah.
all those things together. So
That's awesome. Yeah, it'd be hard not to wanna do that.
yeah, yeah, it was, and then like realizing that when you get in industrial design, everything we're looking at or around us is designed or thought about in some way. So
Yeah, exactly. I'm all about product design. I mean, we'll talk about it here shortly with the
yeah,
James brand, but I've got all these things that I'm looking around my desk right now that I just like to have sitting around because they look cool, even if they're not super functional. And
yeah,
it's what people like. They like the feel in the hand and the product and the design of it. And I think that is something really cool. I would have never thought to kind of head into that industry.
yeah.
Where did you go to school?
So I grew up in Cincinnati, I went to the University of Cincinnati there. They have a
Okay.
really good program called the DAP program. And I was pretty bummed in high school because like all my friends were going to New York or
Yeah.
California or wherever. And I was sticking around Cincinnati, which, I actually grew to love Cincinnati while I was in college, because
Okay.
you get more time as a sort of grown up kid in
Yeah.
college. But they have a really world renowned program there. So it was kind of a no
Really?
brainer to do in-state tuition and, do that
Oh, that's
program.
cool.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm all about the
yeah.
in-state tuition.
Yeah, oh yeah. And these days it's probably even bigger of a saving, but
Oh my
uh,
gosh, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And they
and
have,
did go
yeah.
ahead. No, you go
Well,
ahead.
they have the program they have is the reason I liked it a lot was that I had to intern 6 times before I graduated. It was like part
Oh
of the
my gosh.
curriculum.
Wow.
So yeah, I lived in Boston for 6 months. I lived in Chicago for three, Chicago for 9, and New York for 3 months, all across 6 different internships. So
Dang. I mean, that honestly sounds like a lot of fun, to
oh
kinda
yeah,
go to these
yeah,
cities for a little while, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Any notable companies you interned at?
Yeah, my first one was actually at New Balance, doing footwear there, which
Oh
is
man,
which was
that's
fun.
cool.
And then most of the other ones were, industrial design firms. One that was my favorite was a company called Minimal in Chicago, and it's run by Scott Wilson, who's a really
Okay.
fantastic industrial designer, and they kind of helped set me on my way of realizing what I had to do to be good at this career. So
Absolutely. No,
yeah.
that's awesome. I wanna talk to you a bit about the James brand because I didn't know this about you and now I'm just like a massive fan. I didn't realize you kinda helped start the brand up. Is that what brought you out to Portland initially?
Initially, I got a job at a company called Ziba right out of
Okay.
school, Ziba Design, and actually, when I had met Ryan Coulter before, because when I was interning at Minimal, he was working on a project with Scott Wilson, and we
Okay.
kind of met each other, and then eventually he came to Ziba while I was there, and basically like soon after that, he started James Brand, and then kind of came to me and was like, "Hey, I need a industrial designer to help me design some pocket knives." And I was like, heck yeah, why not? Like, didn't have kids at the time. It's a cool object. I grew up fascinated by them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was kind of for me a no brainer to just do like, yeah, let's do this nights and weekends and figure it out. So,
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm a massive, massive fan of the James brand. They're probably top of my list when it comes to knives and what they've done with the knife space where it's been so kind of tactical and utilitarian for years, and now it's like they've got this great fun design and I think you got a whole new class of people that are kind of into the EDC space because of that design. So props to you for kind of helping launch them in that way. But yeah, I'm interested. Like, do you have a favorite product that you worked on when you were there?
um, I'm a bit nostalgic for the first knife, the chapter.
Yeah.
I think that was the one that obviously started the process, but
Mhm.
it kind of was like you can take a wrong first step and things can be over, and I
Yeah.
think we took a right first one on that one.
Yeah.
And so like that one will always be like near and dear to me. But and I obviously like clearly didn't, I worked on the project for 11 years. I did it
Dang, that's
nights,
crazy.
weekends for 6 with Ryan, and we were actually both working at Nike together while kind of working on that on the side. And
Yeah.
but like eventually it got to big enough to where I wasn't designing everything. We worked with agencies or outside designers, and one of my favorite products that in the end was the Palmer that I think kind of
Yeah.
became like a staple product for the brand because it
It's
just
so
kind of
cool.
again like you said, the knife industry, we were kind of unique in that sense, and the Palmer was even kind of unique within James brand, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I love the Palmer. It's such a fun I can't wait to see what more they do with it. It's so cool. I love the new Clear collection
yeah.
too, which is kind of a '90s throwback. I feel like a kid,
Oh,
kid playing with my Nintendo. You got one?
yeah, that was 100% me just pushing to be like, I think I have it around here somewhere. I was basically like, I want my Nintendo Clear Game Boy in
Yeah.
atomic purple. and
Yeah, it's
that's
so
what we
cool.
went
I
after.
and the purple is actually my favorite out of them. I haven't picked one up yet. I'm waiting on the wind up shop to get them back in stock. But
Yeah,
and I love that. And I like honestly when I think of that Palmer and I obviously know the importance of the chapter, but like the Palmer to me is like I don't know, I feel like it has this presence where it could literally be like the Swiss Army knife, just so iconic in a way. I feel like that's going to happen with the Palmer, with the James Brandon. It's really just cool to see the transition of this knife and where it's going, and it's just
yeah, yeah.
it's a lot of fun. Yeah,
Yeah, I hope it does take on that path and evolves and has different variations,
yeah,
because Victorinox was obviously a massive influence for James Brand, like,
yeah,
more so than other knife brands. Because for us, like we had a tagline that was always practical, not tactical. And it
yeah,
was kind of a goal to be more approachable. And the Palmer, even though
yeah,
our knives were smaller than most and a little more
hmm
approachable than most, like it's a knife is still not for everyone. So the Palmer
yeah.
can be used by everyone, though.
Absolutely. I remember being a kid, and I don't know if you felt this way, but like, I really wanted a Swiss Army knife. I think most kids at some point, maybe not all girls, but I was definitely a kind of a gearhead as a kid and into watches and all that kind of stuff. And I remember being like upset when my brother got one, and then I didn't. I had to like beg to get a knife too. And it's like your first little adventure piece, and you go outside and you start tearing up some sticks and
Oh,
stabbing things with it.
yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
and and like Ryan used to always say, his mom always had one in her purse, and it's just a very
Yeah.
like approachable thing. And
Yeah. It's just
I
this
was in
tool,
Switzerland
yeah,
like
for
3 years
everybody.
ago, and everybody has one. So
Yeah, yeah, I hope that the Palmer takes on that life as well with them, because I could totally see that where it's just like everyone has one, and the kids want them, and parents want one in their bag and pocket and in their car and all that
yeah,
kinda stuff, similar to how, people carry a little Swiss Army knife for things.
yeah, totally.
I remember, one point, just, like, me and my brother playing, like, Operation with with the Swiss Army knife on a Toy Story Woody at one point, and just cutting him up into pieces,
Yeah,
which is quite terrifying, honestly, thinking about it now, but, yeah, it's one of those things that you kind of strive to get as a kid, and it's travel friendly too, which I love as a photographer that travels all
yeah,
over. I can buy a pack of these little blades at a corner store or whatever, if I need a knife on set and I'm, flying somewhere.
yeah,
Have unfortunately had many knives thrown away by TSA, including a couple of James Brand,
yeah.
sadly.
It,
Just my own fault of forgetting that they were in a pocket.
it happens. Yeah, yeah. It's one of those. You're like, oh dang, I forgot. There goes that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm interested just, with you going through college and sort of early days, like, is there anything that's ever been, like, super inspirational to you as far as products go? From either, like, a shoe standpoint or just anything really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always drawn to like the original product or the original icon that's like
Yeah.
lasted a long time.
Yeah, that hasn't, like, changed very much over
Yeah,
time?
and
Yeah.
Victorinox is a very good example. Like any of those that have lasted a long time. For me, like footwear, like the Air Jordan 1 is
Oh, yeah.
king. It's like I don't know. I'd rather just have that as the only shoe I wear, but also
Yeah.
the Chuck 70s. I wear those all the time. So like I'm a bit old school in those, like the Fender Telecaster.
Oh, man.
Just kind of
Yeah.
these classic products that you're like if somebody challenged you to design it better and produce it better, it'd be very very hard to do better.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit old school in a sense like that. So
That's cool. No, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, I could totally see that. Speaking of brands like Nike, when you were working with Nike, is it hard? I imagine it's harder to like work with a brand that has such an identity already and trying to maybe reinvent that wheel versus like your time at James Brand where you guys are really innovating a lot yourselves. Did you find that like a challenge at all with your time at Nike?
uh, maybe a little bit, but like it, Nike's so big that you can kind of find this little corner to do like something interesting.
Yeah.
And James Brown was, like you said, the total opposite, where it's like, we have one product now, let's try and make a brand.
Yeah.
Like for instance, when I was at Nike, like if I had to go over to Taiwan, like we had an admin that would help with visas and
Uh-huh.
passports. And then when I started James Brand full time, I had to like go to the visa office and find my own like passport and visa for China and everything, and
Yeah.
figure every single little step out. So But yeah, Nike, like, for me, I'm a massive fan of sports in general. So, it was amazing being there. And I kind of worked in two areas that were fun. Like, I started out in the digital sport group, which was like the fuel bands and the GPS running
Oh,
watches.
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was kind of a unique product within Nike. And then I moved into the innovation kitchen and I worked on uh, what they refer to as global football, but soccer and like world football. So
That's great.
I worked on like innovation of those cleat and boot designs. So
That's awesome. Did they actually call it the Innovation Kitchen? Is like that the
yeah,
name?
yeah, it's kind of this
That's
like
cool.
heritage. Yeah, it's like this heritage name they've had forever. That is kind of like the front end kind of innovation group that
Yeah.
feeds kind of the pipeline there.
Oh
So
man,
yeah,
that's so cool. I feel like that would be a dream job for any industrial designers like Nike, right? That's like
yeah. And I mean, it was rad, and like footwear is like really fun to design, but I think in the end of the day, we were also like designing actually machinery more than we were footwear, on like how to
yeah,
actually make the machinery and solve those problems and improve the athlete. So
yeah,
the problem solving was more unique than kind of like, hey, let's make this knife look really nice.
yeah,
It was very different. So
yeah, totally.
yeah.
I was gonna ask, has there been anything that you felt like was like just a major challenge, or maybe even like weird to work on over the years?
um, I I did a project at Ziba for a long time that was like designing the future of Febreze for Procter and
Oh, wow,
Gamble.
it's pretty different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it was just kind of like, hey, what, like, we have Febreze, and what's going to be the future of this? And it was kind of fascinating to kind of work backwards and be like, let's just pretend Febreze like went away, and why did it disappear? And
yeah,
what were the reasons it did disappear? Like, was it environmental changes? Was it
yeah,
like currency changes or whatever that was? Like, so it was kind of a fascinating, like, look 10 years in the future and figure out what this really like well-known consumer packaged goods company can do with this really like big franchise of theirs. So
yeah. I
uh,
feel like that's something we all probably take for granted, right? Not only the advertising, but just like the product itself and how long it's been around. Like,
yeah,
it sounded weird to me when you were just talking about Febreze. And I'm like, wait, literally everyone probably uses this product every day, and we just like don't really think about it. It's
yeah,
just it's so mainstream now.
yeah,
Um,
and that's the thing with like consumer packaged goods. It's hard to like like a pocket knife that you might like really love, or the Palmer. Like,
mhm.
it's very personal to you, whereas these consumer packaged goods are just kind of like, oh, there's that thing that I use occasionally.
Yeah, but it's equally as important because
Oh
it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
something that you need and a
yeah,
necessity in a way. And again, I just feel like yeah, there's probably a stash of products that we never give a ton of love to,
yeah,
including Febreze.
yeah.
But I am kind of like interested in hearing your process of creativity and like what's your go-to? Are you like the person that sits down pen and paper? Like how do you storyboard or sort of concept? Are you locked yourself away for a few hours, or are you like mocking up things on the computer? Like what's your sort of process there
I mean, I look at a lot of things like all the
for
time. Like,
inspo and
yeah, like I have like a tab of like, I don't know, 30 like inspirational sites I check out each day.
oh
Just
wow, that's cool.
just kind of visually kind of like track things and see what's happening. And um, so I'm always in Instagram. I follow a crazy amount of people, and just mostly
Yeah.
artists and people doing products, and just kind of scrolling and seeing what's new. So I usually like, I'm constantly like in that space,
Yeah.
and so I usually start out my process of just like, it sounds funny, but like procrastinating and waiting until
Yeah.
like, you're like walking down the street and you see something, you're like, that could be the product that, like,
Yeah.
that could be interesting. So, but like physically, I usually then start on pen and paper and go pretty physical in that sense.
Yeah.
I like, one of my favorite products ever is the Bic round stick pen. That's really
Mm.
basic, but
Yeah.
it does the job. So, in school we weren't allowed to use pencils or rulers. We had to only use pen and draw straight lines and
Oh wow.
draw circles. And so it kind of really got you like honed in that way, like to not control Z everything,
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, so that's kind of where I start. And then I'll typically kind of go into CAD pretty quickly though.
Yeah. Yeah, and draw it up there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I was a better artist. I have a brother that's great and can like imagine and draw up anything in the world, and I guess my art is behind the lens, like that's that's where I'll
Sure.
stay.
Yeah.
But
Your photos are great.
well,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that. But I definitely wish I had the artist touch and can mock things up. But yeah, I imagine, did you sort of have a skill before school, or did they really kind of hone in on that more when you were in
I mean,
college?
I was in art in high school, but it wasn't like industrial design drawing is kind of a different beast. It's kind of
Yeah.
like you're basically using it as your language to communicate on how something should be made or be communicated.
Yeah.
And I think in explaining it to somebody that may not be able to like understand 3D or how an object should go together, and
Yeah.
so we were taught kind of how to draw that way. But at the same time, Cincinnati was a unique school where they didn't actually require like an art portfolio to get in. You had to have good
Okay.
grades and a good SAT score.
Yeah.
Their theory was like, we're going to put you through 5 years and we're going to teach you how to draw. So
That's great though. No, I like
yeah,
that.
yeah, they kind of attracted people with work ethic and ability to kind of like dig in. So
Yeah, I'm just looking quickly on your site. There was something that I saw. Um, oh yeah, it was under this consumer electronics. Some of your work. Are these your drawings down on this page? With looks like there's maybe a headphone set,
yeah,
and
yeah,
those are your mock-ups. Yeah, they're
yeah,
great.
yeah. Those
I think
were
they're awesome.
that was for a Logitech headset I did it while I was at Cinco Design. um, and a lot of it, yeah, you can. I think some of it you can kind of see as like a cross section of like the headphone, and you're trying to figure out the stack up of the battery with the
Yeah,
driver of the headphone, and see how that kind of fits within the form. So there's kind of a lot of back and forth of like where you are in the process.
yeah,
And I like industrial designers are different, right? But like I typically like default back to like if I need to figure something out, I'm going to pull out a sketchbook and doodle it and do a cross section or do a side view or whatever. So
yeah. These are awesome, by the way. I think they're very cool. I love seeing sketches. And, yeah, I really kinda like the sketch format of these on your
yeah,
page.
there's
We'll
thank
link
you.
it up in the show notes too so people can check it out.
Cool.
These are really awesome. I'm curious, like, I mean, obviously, you sound like you're pretty into watches too. Do you find, like, that designer eye kinda comes over to your watch collection at all with pieces you pick out?
Yeah, I think so. Like my collection is a little bit unique in that sense. Like I worked at Nike, and they used to actually have a watch team. Like just they did watches back in the day, and
Yeah.
some of them are super rad. Scott Wilson, who I mentioned earlier, did a really cool one that I like a lot, and they just have these really unique look at them, and design like Jung Hans and all that. I'm very into because that's very much a design architect kind of look. And then probably some of my favorites are actually by this Japanese designer Fukasawa that is kind of he's kind of most like globally known for what he's done with Muji. But
Yeah.
he's a very like within industrial designers he's basically God. So
Really?
I have a watch that he designed that like is one
Oh,
of my
cool.
favorites to wear a lot. So
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
I just Googled Nike watches because I was like, I have a vision in my head, but I don't remember if that's what they look like. And no, it is. It's like it's got this weird, like, I guess it's kind of like the swoosh in a way, for the
yeah,
band, and they were on these like silicone bands. I do definitely remember I might have even had one of these, honestly, when I was very young.
yeah. They're like
Um,
organic Iron Mans, and
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
I
sense.
felt like they definitely took some inspo from the or maybe the Iron Man took inspo from them. I don't know which one came first, but
Yeah.
could definitely see that. Maybe we'll see a comeback of these
Yeah,
Nike
and
watches.
I'm a
That'd be kind of
stickler
cool.
for like symmetry and stuff like that. I'm
Yeah.
kind of weird in that sense, just from
I do you probably don't like a date window then potentially
not
on
yeah, not often. And,
Yeah.
and even when we when I've done some for Timex, like it's try and make it look like the 3 o'clock indice rather than a date
Yeah.
window. So
Yeah.
and even I don't know if you ever noticed this on the FXD, but on the indices on the bezel, there's 4 surrounding the 10, but there's only
Uh-huh.
3 surrounding the other ones.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and
I
it's
didn't
because
notice
like,
that.
the 10 itself is narrower than 20, 30, or 40 or 50.
Interesting.
And it just like it visually balances it better. So
Yeah.
there's odd stuff like that you're like you notice.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet. That's awesome. I'll have what years were you at in Nike? I'll have to look up and see some of the products that were released around that time.
Well, I was there from 2012 to 2017. So,
Okay.
but unfortunately, like most of what I worked on, was in innovation or
Okay.
digital sport, and neither like nothing really that I worked on, like physically worked on, saw the light of day
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
was innovation, and usually it then went to inline designers, and they made it
Okay.
look great and function well. So, yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
didn't even I was gonna say I didn't even realize they were still, potentially doing those watches there, just because I hadn't seen them in a long time.
Oh yeah, they're not right now. So
Yeah.
I've scoured eBay, and I know few people that have worked there, and be like, "You have this watch?" Yeah,
Yeah. I'm curious, if you weren't doing industrial design, what do you think would you be doing something in sport? I know you love sport. Do you feel like you would have gone down that avenue?
yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I would like out of high school if I didn't find industrial design. I'm like, I don't know what my career would have been.
Yeah.
It would
Been a
have been,
little lost for a little while maybe,
yeah,
as most, 18-year-olds are when they when they
yeah,
graduate.
yeah. I mean, if I had endless money, I'd love to be an art collector and an art dealer,
Yeah.
and like just be around paintings all day.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of a pipe dream. But I think something in the arts or sport, yeah, I think would be
Yeah.
interesting. But not really sure what.
Do you do anything in the art space as far as, like, do you paint or I mean, I know you obviously you mock up, drawings and stuff, but do you do any, like, serious drawings or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm trying to make that a habit of mine, to get into that and kind of get lost in that a little bit more than kind of being so technical and so like
Yeah.
defined in what you do as in industrial design. So yeah, I'm definitely doing that. My wife's actually amazing at it and doing that more
Oh, that's
often.
great.
She as well is an industrial designer, but works at
Oh,
Nike. So
cool.
we both try and stay like, creative in our outside lives as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's been a big goal for me this year. I'm trying to learn to, like you mentioned, sort of disconnect from the tech world, and been journaling since the beginning of the year,
Mhm.
which we'll see how long it lasts. It always starts out really well and then it fades away, but, I bought this, like, it's called, like, the Kindle, I can't even remember what it's called, but it's like the Kindle where you can, like, write on it and
Oh
stuff,
yeah, yeah.
the pad. Um, and it's been great, and I've been using it a ton, and I've been writing on it, but then I was like, this thing could expire, it could die, or it could run out of battery, and I was like, kinda like, "Well, I wanna go back to just pen and paper, just old school it," you know? I'm tired of just being tied to all these things that have to be charged all the time, which kinda
Yeah.
sucks, and, I've started camping again, and I kinda like this, like, getting off the grid for a few days, and so, yeah, I've gone back to just pen and paper and journaling and just kinda being creative that way. But, and then even with photography, like a goal of mine is to shoot more film this year and
Yeah.
get away from just the digital cameras. And I've got 2 cameras sitting on the shelf that I never pick up that are film, and it's like it feels like a waste. And,
Yeah.
kind of living with the good and the bad shots, right? And,
Yeah.
I think we live in a world where everything looks perfect and is perfect, and you can delete the bad stuff and no one has to see it. And I don't know, I kinda like the bad stuff. I kinda like the messy things and kind of, going back to that a little bit, not being afraid.
Yeah, totally. I'm very much in that boat as well, and I'm like, Field Notes is was one of my favorite products
Oh my
ever
gosh,
too as
so
well.
cool.
And I think Pete McKinnon, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he just did a good video on
I
his
saw that,
notebook,
yeah.
and it kind of inspired me because I have like a yearly planner that I try and write in each day, but I don't, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I just need to make it a thing and do it and be fine with it,
Yeah.
and the one thing I've embraced lately, and is I'm actually sending like a postcard a week to a friend,
Oh my
and
gosh, that's
like,
cool.
yeah, just receiving something in the mail is like maybe one of the best things that can be done these days in the digital world because you're just like
Mhm.
out of the blue get something, and it's like, oh
Yeah.
wow, and it costs like whatever a forever stamp costs right now, like
Yeah.
55 cents or whatever. So
Yeah,
um,
totally. No, that's
yeah,
awesome. I think that's something that could definitely, like, bring a smile to someone's face is getting a personal card.
Yeah.
I have a friend that like when every time they go on vacation, they buy a postcard wherever they're at and like send it to me, and I'm like, oh man, this is so cool. I need to do this more.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Speaking of field notes, yeah, I watched that same Peter McKinnon video last week, and I've got like I don't know, I've got like 50 of these things laying around that I've bought
Yeah.
for photo shoots and props and all this kind of stuff. And I always have the idea that I'm going to carry it in all my bags. I'm going to use it, and then I just end up using my phone. I put things in notes because
Yeah.
literally my phone is in my back pocket half of the time.
Yeah.
Um, but again, yeah, I watched this video. I was like, man, I kind of want to like doodle and just write random things and to-do lists and shopping lists out on things. So, yeah, I've actually got one with my journal kit. I stuck one in there. I was like, all right, I'm going to try to
Yeah.
take this with me and use it. And speaking of products like that, the fill notes, they just nailed it, right? Like I've tried
Yeah.
others and they're just not the same. I don't know what it is about field notes.
Yeah. 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 It's just, they knocked it out of the park. And I know Aaron Draplin and worked with him in the past, and he's an American treasure in the sense of like, just being a really awesome person and a graphic designer.
Yeah.
And so Field Notes is my favorite by far. And I think like you, like I do like unfortunately default to my Notion list. I have Notion and I use that, and it's like it functions the best, but like at the same time I want to just open Field Notes, and do that.
Yeah. What is Notion? Is this I guess it's an app, right?
Yeah, it's an app. It's kind of, I mean, I probably use it like 0.5% of its capabilities, like
Yeah.
a lot of like, digital design UI UX teams use it to stay organized and communicate, and but it's a really good like program to kind of stay connected on.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I have to ask, have you ever like mocked up a watch like from the ground up if you could like design one? Have you ever done that?
I mean, not of my own accord,
Yeah.
but at James Brand, I did all the Timex stuff there. So
The
uh,
Iron Man that they did?
the Iron Man and the GMT.
Oh, cool.
So the GMT that came out was from the ground up for them. So
That was
that
so
one was
cool.
kind of like through my lens. If I could design a watch that was a GMT, this would kind of be what it looks like. So
That's so cool. I didn't realize you worked on that. Yeah,
yeah,
those
yeah,
were, I mean, all heavy hitters, I have to say. Like, I've loved every single one of the collabs that the James Brand has done with Timex. They're all killer.
yeah, yeah. I think it was such a good like kind of mashup of a partnership because like they make a really good product at a really good price, and
Yeah.
we kind of our prices were a little bit higher, so we were like, let's push your ceiling and see where that can go. And
Yeah.
they hadn't done titanium in forever, or they never had, and we kind of did that with the first one, and then the GMT, and so it was a really good like way to kind of allow them to explore new materials, and then they've expanded that and had really good success after it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can't wait to see what they do next, honestly, and, yeah, it'd be awesome for anyone to collaborate with them. I'm excited to see who else they end up doing projects with.
yeah.
Did you take part in the wallet too that came with the Iron Man?
That I was kind of a part of that, but yeah, that was kind of
Yeah.
a team effort to like be like, what else, what other like
Yeah.
80s and 90s inspired
With
like
the Velcro, yeah.
running stuff did we do, so
Yeah, I mean, it was so popular at I think it was San Francisco when it around the time it first came out. We
right.
we had some there, and half of our team honestly bought them out, and then it was just super popular at the table. I remember, and kids like loving it. And I know some kids snagged it as like their first little watch and
Yeah,
wallet set, which is incredible. And like that's all you can ask for, right? Is to get a kid
yeah,
inspired.
yeah. And I mean, that one, when I was working on that one, it was like, again, Game Boy Color, whatever, like just,
Yeah,
like bright colors. And the thing I wanted to do was like, they had that like Velcro strap that was on it before, but I was like, what if this basically turned into two lugs and you had a pass
yeah.
through NATO strap and you could switch that out. So,
I know, it's so
um,
cool,
yeah, it's not,
incredible.
yeah, it's maybe not the best execution of a fit of a watch, but it's not uncomfortable by any means, but
No, and it's super
yeah,
light
yeah, it
too.
weighs nothing. So,
Yeah, I don't mind when when a watch is a little funky in design or
yeah,
shape. I've certainly had watches that the lugs sort of extend past,
right.
my wrist dimensions, but as long as it's light and it's comfortable, that's really what matters at the end of the day. I've
Yeah.
owned some watches that people are like, no way. I have like a Speedmaster Mark II that I had for a while, and they're like, this is like a chunk of a thing, and I'm like, well, put it on your wrist, and it's like really comfortable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Don't be afraid.
totally.
um, so what kind of advice, as we sort of close out here, what kind of advice would you give to someone that's looking into going into industrial design, or if there's any sort of misconceptions out there about the industry?
Um, yeah, I mean, like it's a really like if you're into creating things and making things, it's definitely a very interesting career. And you can go all the way from like doing furniture design to designing a toothbrush to designing a pocket watch
Yeah,
or a pocket knife or pocket watch if you want. And so it's very broad in a sense. And you can also, like, the nice thing is you can be like, I want to do industrial design, but I just want to design guitars. Like,
yeah, you can
you can
really
be
find
very
your niche in
specific
a
as
way.
well. Yeah. And you can kind of own kind of a thing. And I've kind of been into the knife world and kind of watch world, and so like that's kind of where my home is at the
Yeah,
moment. But you can tomorrow I could be like, I want to do furniture, and I could go
yeah.
explore that.
That's
So
so cool. There's really
yeah,
so many endless options that you have in the product space.
yeah, totally. And I think if anybody's interested, and I always tell any students that I've worked with in the past is like, you don't have to go design the thing you don't want to. Like
Yeah,
whatever you're passionate about, go down that rabbit hole and,
yeah,
and like go towards that, because I think that's really what like is gonna get you up every morning to work on it, but also like make your best work through. So uh,
yeah. Yeah, you
yeah,
don't have to go out there and design, I don't know, toilet seats or something, or mailboxes, or if unless you want to,
yeah,
and
yeah,
we
you
probably
could,
should have more that do
yeah, yeah,
innovate them a little more.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Toto is a great toilet company, and
Yeah.
yeah, they make great toilets. So
Yeah. Oh, something else I did wanna bring this up and just get your take on it, like, with has AI affected, like, your industry at all with that really, taking lead in sort of the creative fields now? I know even in my photography space, like, AI is basically coming up with images that look real, and
yeah.
certainly there's been tools that have been useful to me as far as editing goes, and I've certainly taken part in. But I'm curious in sort of your field and your way of working, as it impacted it at all.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. It's I don't know if impact is the right word, but just like affected it and kind of
Yeah,
changed it in a bit. Because these days you could just draw like a really rough sketch and create something amazing through Viscom or these other kind of add-ons. So it's definitely there, and I mess around with it occasionally and kind of play around with it, but I still kind of default to like my kind of core skills that I've learned and
yeah,
use it as a tool as I need. But yeah, definitely industries are using it all the time, and I think for me, like the best thing it's good at is like early creation and concepts.
hmm,
Like building out a bunch of early concepts and being like, yeah, these are
yeah,
interesting. Now let me take them and kind of turn them into something real.
yeah,
Because I think at the end of the day, still you're going to have to create CAD that's going to go into a tool and be made to make a plastic injection part. So
yeah,
AI may replace that sooner than we probably all think. But like at right now, like there is still going to be that finesse and eye that has to be like trained to really kind of like choose the right path.
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's definitely been used
Yeah.
a
Yeah, I was
lot.
just curious, yeah, if you'd heard that, it was sort of making its reign through the creative field and world that you live in,
Yeah, I
as so
know.
many are.
Yeah, I know a lot of friends at Nike that use it a lot, and VR is big in the footwear
Yeah.
industry now, and so like yeah, it's all kind of evolved from when I was in college, still doing marker renders on paper.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kinda scary, it's kinda cool, I don't really know what to think about it yet. Like I said, there's been, tools that have been added to my workflow that I love and think that they have helped greatly. They've sped up my workflow where I don't have to sit in front of the computer as much, especially when I'm, manually going through and taking out every little speck of dust
Yeah,
from a watch, or scratches, removing scratches and all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
But then there's times where like it is scary. And I was talking to someone in the photography space who like used to storyboard with other creators, and now they just storyboard with AI, and it takes like
Yeah.
10 minutes and they're done. And it's like, oh man, I feel bad for the people that were, sitting and drawing and doing those mock-ups, where I do feel like that's probably pretty impacted with AI tools. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely here to stay. So it's something to embrace and try and figure out in the way
Yeah.
that you can to use it. But
Yeah, I think it's like a matter of how can I use this, and work together with it rather than like not use it. Because I do think there are some benefits, and can it help your workflow? Can it help speed up your time?
yeah.
And but then like you mentioned, there's still hopefully knock on wood, a personal touch that people still will want on these things.
Yeah.
At the end of the day on these projects.
Yeah, and I think like with all technologies and things that come, like it'll replace things, but things will come out of it that need support. Like
Yeah.
there's all these old images of like when they were designing cars in the 40s and 50s, like of rooms of guys laying on drafting tables,
Yeah.
drawing out the components of the cars, and like that obviously went into CAD work and then changed, and so
Yeah.
it just kind of evolves, and there's a reason we evolve and change, and you just kind of got to keep
You
moving with
gotta
it.
change with it. Yeah, no, my husband's, he's a civil engineer, and he's in bridge design here in Tennessee, and yeah, he often will, like, they have drawers and drawers filled with old drawings from,
Yeah.
like, back in the day when they were, like, hand drawing all this stuff, and then I can only imagine when, like, the CAD software came on, how many people were resistant to it and were
Oh
like,
yeah.
"No, this is gonna be the worst thing for us," and then once you learn it and then now you're using it, right? It's just a matter of, like, how can you use this tool instead of making it about, like, the tool itself is gonna take over.
Yeah. Totally. Yep.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
cool. Well, Sam, it's been awesome to chat with you and hear sort of your backstory and a little bit of insight into the field. And I appreciate you coming on today and chatting with me.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you having me. It's been great.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see each other at a wind up maybe
Yeah, for
in
sure.
the future. I'm not heading up to Portland just yet, but maybe San Francisco or something.
Yeah. No,
Which
I want to make it to San Francisco or New York this year. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Those are our biggest fairs. Super excited to come back to Fort Mason, especially in San Francisco. It's
Yep.
absolutely beautiful. I'm ready to get out of this cold, cold weather that we're having. So San Francisco sounds pretty good right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
We're about to have a snowstorm hit us tonight and tomorrow. So
So
yay.
we had that over the weekend. So yeah.
Yeah, it's hitting everywhere. It's a bad year for it, but
Yeah.
we'll stay hunkered down and safe. And Sam, again, great talking to you, and hopefully we'll be in touch soon.
Yeah. Of course.